Welcome to Energising Life with AKR Fitness. I'm Jace, I'm here with Lynsey.
Hello.
How you doing, Lynsey?
Feeling good, yeah.
How you been?
I've been just fine, thank you, Jace.
He's starting to crack a little bit. And we're also here with Mike.
I'm well, I've been good, thanks, Jace. Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah, I'm grand. Loving the conversations we've been having.
Are we going to have another one?
Nah.
I was trying to think of something really clever, but I lost it. It came and went. If you've been following along with us over season 2, you'll know that we've been talking about our skill practices and our approach to behaviour change. We had prioritising protein, too many peas, power down, eat colourful veg, review and renew, snack smart, and move more. Today we're going to talk about the 7th and final one, which is eat just enough. Now sometimes it's good to think of the opposite to really understand what we're going for. So what would be the opposite of eating just enough? Eating too much, right?
For me it is. For some people it's
eating too little.
It's eating too little, yeah. For me it's eating too much, and I've spoken before on previous shows about how I struggled with my relationship with food, and I had a long period where I was struggling with binge eating, and even now, like I feel I have a really great relationship with food now. I still think, it's maybe a strange thing to say, but I still think almost like the biggest source of me being in a down mood is when I eat too much. I think it affects my sleep, it affects my energy, it affects my mood. I just feel So eat just enough when I'm on point and in the zone, a good flow with this particular practice. It's a really big thing for me that energizes my life.
What about you, Lynsey?
Yeah, I said in the last episode that, I'm on top of when I eat. Maybe I eat when I'm not hungry and things like that, but there are days when I know that I haven't eaten enough. Okay. Especially if I've had a busy day at work or I've been on my feet more than 20,000 steps and I've not been in tune with what I have been eating during the day. And I'll find myself getting to about 5, 6 at night, and I can suffer from visual migraines because I've not had enough food. I feel a little bit dizzy, my energy's low, and I just feel rotten. Yeah.
I'm probably in the same camp as you, Mike, where I eat probably a little bit too much, and then it's, you feel lousy and blah. I
think a good example of eating too much, and I say it a lot, is the Christmas Day fool.
Christmas Day fool. If you need a nap after having a meal, you probably
overdid it.
Yes, exactly.
Probably
That's
went a little bit too far.
A good sign for me.
I think that's it though. There's two camps. There's overeaters and there's undereaters. And I've worked with lots of people who are undereaters, and they almost feel like they don't get the same, I don't want to say respect, but acknowledgement, because the people tend to think, oh, it's all right for you. That's your biggest worry. But it's still a challenge, whether people are eating too much or eating too little, both can be challenges in life.
I think a lot of our members who have quite stressful lives and jobs forget to eat, and you can see it when they come in to train that they just don't have the energy for it, and then it's frustrating for them. So yeah, it's good to point that out as well.
So what does eating just enough look like?
So yeah, it's mainly for us, we're talking about tuning in again. We touched on this last episode, there'll be a bit of crossover, but getting that right amount of food to leave you in that energized state. So often over the years when we've practiced this one and gone through some of the education with our members, we have this little graph where you've got, I don't know how best to describe this for the people who, well, even if you're watching on video, I don't have the graph. But if you can picture a bell-shaped curve, so on the left-hand side where you're eating too little, it doesn't feel good. And then the far right, the curve is how good you feel. So it's low on the left, you feel low because you haven't eaten you haven't eaten enough. It rises up and there's this sweet spot in the middle, the high point in the bell, where you're in the zone of you've eaten just enough. And then beyond that, again, you don't feel good again. So it's just trying to learn, and there's different tools and strategies and guidelines that we can use, but just trying to get it so that after a meal, we find ourselves in that nice green zone of having the right amount of food, not too little, not too much, just like Goldilocks.
Stole the words right out. I was just about to say Goldilocks. So what is it about this practice that we get our members to do? Or what's the guidelines that we go through?
So what we do in this one is, again, share that sort of image, and then it's another one I would say that's evolved over the years. What we have now is a suggestion of, I think we've got 10, and then there are a mix of the listen to the body skills and guidelines. There are more, we've got a couple of nutrition guidebooks that our members have access to as well. But we have these 10 just as examples, and we're saying, look, pick one, pick two, pick three maybe. Pick a mix of these. Hopefully not more than 3, because you end up overwhelmed overdoing it. So you pick what you're going to practice. You decide which meal or meals you want to practice it at, because for some people, breakfast it takes care of itself, or it's the same every day. They don't need to worry about it. Typically, we find it's later in the evening. When people are a bit more tired, emotions come in and things like that. So pick your practice, pick your meal, and then the third part is the key part, is like pick how you're going to remember to do it, because eating is such a automatic behavior. It's so habitual already that it's easy to just wolf down your meal and be like, oh yeah, I was meant to do that thing this meal.
Should we go on then?
So it's almost like finding the cue before sitting down to that meal, being really prepared in your mind. This is the meal that I'm going to do this.
Exactly that. Yeah. What's going to cue me to remind me to practice this?
So we've got 10 guidelines or 10 choices. Let's go through them one by one, and let's figure out, or let's just have a talk about it and see if it fits in your life, if you've tried it, how you feel about it. So number 1, Mike.
So first thing, very simple, is just notice. Again, this isn't what people call a SMART goal. It's not that quantifiable. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I think that's, for me, we've already said in previous shows, as we've discussed all these skill practices, that some of them we find, and different people will find different ones easy, but some of them, powered down, I'm pretty solid at that one. We spoke about protein, move more, pretty solid. This one for me is one that I, each time it comes around, I think, maybe just need to just dial in a little bit more on this one. And so the first of the 10 is just noticing. It's like noticing when I'm getting full, noticing.
Do you have any telltale signs? Like, how do you take part in this one? How would you know when you're getting full, noticing when you're full?
Well, tuning into the stomach, first of all, which sounds obvious, but how many people are actually paying attention to how their stomach feels when they're eating or just after eating? Or are they already
enjoying the flavour?
I don't know if I even do that, to be honest.
Just consumed.
I feel like I live quite fast in everything I do. I'm always doing things fast. Yeah, so I'm the sort of person that wolfs down the meal, couldn't even tell you what it was, Then still hungry, eat something else, and then before you know it, you're in that, I've passed that Goldilocks zone. I've eaten too much now. So in order to notice, slowing down is the first step, but then actually paying attention to how your body feels.
Lynsey, do you have any, how do you notice? Or what do you do to notice?
Again, this is one that I rarely practice. I'm probably more on what goes on the plate first, rather than how I'm feeling during it. So I always make sure that my portions are in control, rather than overwhelm the plate. I always make an example: if you go to a carvery and it's an all-you-can-eat buffet, you just go mental.
Oh yeah.
Full. I was at a barbecue not that long ago, and I literally filled my plate full of food, and I sat down, I looked at it, and I'm thinking, why have I done this? Do you know what I mean?
Because it's there.
Yeah, because it's there and it's an abundance. But when I'm cooking at home, I'll make sure that my portions are within control, that I'm not going to overeat.
How do you control your portions?
Well, if I'm making something in bulk, I'll portion it off into containers to go in the fridge, so I don't go back into it.
Okay.
That would be one example.
Mike, portions for you?
Can I just go back to the notice part? I just wanted to say one more thing in the notice one, because there's 2 parts to it. The first part is actually noticing when you're feeling full. And I think that's the key first step for everyone. if they're practicing that particular skill. But the second part is stopping.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
because there's times where you're like, I know I'm full,
And you just keep going.
but I'm having more anyway. Or people, they're out for a meal, they talk about the dessert stomach. They're full from their main meal, but they're still
Always
going
room for
to
dessert.
always room for dessert. So I think it's okay if you can recognize, and you can first step by just being aware that, I'm full now, and you might not always succeed in stopping. I think that's okay, because you can't stop until you notice. So if you first start noticing, and then you're maybe hit and miss at actually stopping, I think that's okay, and that's part of the journey. Yeah. The portions part, when Lynsey talked about buffet there, it brought into my head a couple of experiences I had when I was traveling. So when I was traveling, and this goes into this idea of like this scarcity mindset for dieters. So when dieters think that they cannot have something, I think that causes the problem. And if you give yourself more of that mindset, like I can have whatever I want to eat, and I can have it today, and I can have it tomorrow, I can have it the next day, you're far more likely to stop when you've had enough.
I think that's ultimately how diets fail, because sooner or later you're not going to want to suffer and deprive yourself of that thing anymore.
Yeah, and when something is scarce, it becomes more valuable. So my story, when I was traveling, I was in Latin America, I didn't have a lot of money, and it was a real shoestring sort of budget, finding the local places to eat and things. Along the way, I would sign up for like tours to do, special things. And one, I could use a number of examples for this, a number actually. One that springs to mind is when I went mountain biking in Bolivia on that. It's called the Death Road. It was on Top Gear once.
Sounds exactly where you want to go mountain biking.
Pretty famous.
An experience.
But what you do is you start up really quite at high altitude, and it's freezing, and you go down all the way down, and you finish it. The climate's totally different. When you finish, it's like temperate jungle and hot. And you've been, I can't remember how long it probably took most of the day or most of the morning or whatever. And you get down and there's a buffet, which is included in, the price that I paid to go on the tour and things. So because I've now, rather than like on a budget, I've now got an unlimited amount of food that I can eat that's already been paid for. So it's kind of like Lynsey said about the Sunday carver or whatever. It's just like eat and eat and eat. Because that quantity and availability of food was previously really scarce to me, it's like a camel, like got to fill up, not on water, but on food, like eat it, and it just felt dreadful afterwards.
British mindset of paid for it.
I was just going to say that, so I'll eat it.
But also because that it was such a scarce thing, I knew, like, and some of the foods were novel, and like the cooked bananas and plantains and stuff they had there. It's like, I need to have that because I don't know where the next one's coming from.
Yeah.
Which is what people are like with, I don't know when my next chocolate biscuit's coming from because I'm on a diet, so I'll finish the pack today. But thinking of that, and maybe more relatable for people, is a barbecue where you have a burger, and then you have something else, and then you have something else, and then you have something else. And I think in that buffet environment, and I am getting to portions, I'm coming there, a buffet environment or a barbecue environment, if you put everything you're going to eat on one plate, like it would have probably horrified me, like what I ate that day in Bolivia, and there was other ones, on the journey. Or in a barbecue, if you think, everything I'm going to eat this afternoon, I'm going to put on one plate, you'd probably be appalled at what it is. So the idea that next one, we've step one or option one is just notice, but option two is more of a guideline than a listen to the body skill. It's just like, okay, put the right amount of food on your plate to begin with.
How do you decipher the right amount of food? Is there some tricks there?
Well, I think it's trial and error. Again, we spoke last time about meal windows. So if I put X amount of food on my plate, and then 2 hours later I'm ravenous, then probably it wasn't enough. And other way around, like you said before, if you put X amount of food on your plate and you're having a nap afterwards, you need to have a nap, then maybe it was too much. So
Too much.
I think that's where having that structure is really helpful for people, because they can say, I ate breakfast, and how long did that last me? Obviously, what you're doing, if you had a workout in the morning or you didn't, or how active you were, will influence. But it's trial and error, I think, trial and improvement.
Practice. Yeah. Tip number 3 or guideline number 3 is one that I find super challenging, and that's no screens. It's a world of technology and a world of everything at your fingertips. I find it really hard. And what about you, Mike? How'd you get on with no screens?
I'm the same. I would say this isn't one that I have practiced this one before, but I don't. And that's why we have 10 that people can choose from. And there's not just 10, but also it is really effective. It's one of those ones that I don't want to do, but I know when I do it, I'm far more present with what's on my plate and how I'm feeling.
I think it's one of the biggest ones for me, the most effective one for me, having no screen.
You put it into practice a lot?
Yeah, I do. And from moving into my flat last year, I was with my mum, and literally everything was in the living room: food, sofa, TV. Like, there was no other place to eat.
Yeah.
But now I've got a dining table which has no screens, no TV, nothing. And the difference with being present compared to ramming all the food down your throat and then thinking, where's that gone? Where's the dessert?
Yeah.
You're sitting, you're at the table, you're almost at one with the plate of food, and you're enjoying it. Like, don't get me wrong, there'll be times where I've rushed it and I've thought to myself, oh God, I don't know where that's went, usually in the morning. But I try at least one meal a day just to sit down at that table and enjoy what I'm eating.
An example for this, if you think of a time when you've been to a restaurant, and let's say you've been to a really fancy restaurant, and the food comes out and it's beautifully presented.
You have to take a picture of it.
But there's not much of it. And what happens though is that you go really slow, you enjoy, you talk about the food. You're not on your phone once you've taken your picture, Jase. You're not watching YouTube or watching a TV in the restaurant. You're there in the moment with your food. You eat it slow, you pay attention to the food. And I've had these experiences where you think, that ain't going to fill me up.
You make the dad joke of, I like it, can I get the real one now?
But by the end of it, oftentimes you're actually quite content with the amount of food you had.
You've had 7 plates.
but you've slowed down.
Yeah, you've enjoyed it. It makes such a difference.
Being present, yeah.
Okay, so tip number 4 or guideline number 4. I'm not saying it. My accent's not going to allow me to say this. Keeping it clean.
Fork off. Fork off. I think we gave all of them just a short name to make them memorable, but fork off was just putting the fork down between meals.
How many times do you think we can say it before someone slips up?
If something's funny, it's more likely to be memorable, so hopefully that works with this one. But it's just, again, not for everybody, but it's a simple guideline that people could lean on if they want to. Is make sure they put the fork down, chew the food, and don't pick it up until...
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I think you need to explain to the people around you and get the support from the people around you. Because I've tried this a few times, and all I get is, what are you doing? Finished. You've hardly... Like, just give me a minute. And so, I think having support for that one and explaining what you're doing is key.
It's something that I feel like I need to do when I'm at a restaurant, because my fiance will eat much, much slower. She's like a food role model in many ways, her relationship with food and how, and so if I don't put the fork down, I'll be finished before she's had a few bites, and then it's just awkward.
You sit there awkwardly just watching this other person eat. How's the chips there? Say it again for me, Mike.
Fork off.
Yeah. That kind of ties into the next one, which is halfway. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, schedule a half time. So this one feels a bit more manageable than putting the fork down for me, and certainly for some of our members here, where you look at your food at the start and you say, I'm visualizing it. When I'm roughly halfway through this, I'm just going to do a little check-in and see how I'm feeling.
You ever tried that one, Lynsey?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
I did.
That sounded bit. Why not?
Again.
Tell me why you haven't.
No, I just, for me personally, I think it's weird.
I think Lynsey she said her main one is the portion. So if you've got the right amount on your plate,
you don't really need to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And listen, we'll say they're not for everybody. I know people that love this one. Again, I'm more of if it's on my plate, I'm going to eat it anyway.
Yeah.
But still, it can help slow down.
Yeah, I don't think this one's. I've tried it, but again, you get that reaction.
I think it's not my favourite one. I think it's a bit weird.
Do you have a favourite?
Yeah, portions.
Portions?
Yeah.
I think...
And sitting without screens, I would say.
Without screens?
I think this one could be more helpful in that buffet barbecue sort
Yeah,
of setting.
100%. Yeah, I would agree with
So
that.
then you begin to see the value there.
Yeah.
It's different when all your food's on your plate and you're going to eat it anyway.
Yeah.
But when it's not, when there's more and more coming, just that pause to just take a moment.
I think the pauses and sort of half time and putting your fork down and noticing is also really beneficial for our next guideline, which is find the flavour. Because food's there to be enjoyed as well. It's not just a fuel source, or you have to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So find the flavour, Mike.
Yeah, well, also, it's noticing that flavour enjoyment is different from fullness. And again, we kind of spoke about this in the snacking bit, where you have a biscuit, that's really nice, I need another one. Well, you've already enjoyed the flavour,
yeah.
Do you know? And so getting more and more full isn't making you, I guess, happier or more contented. So you can really enjoy the flavour and not necessarily have to have more. You're people are chasing the flavour hit again when they're already full.
You can almost use it to your advantage. Once you feel like you're full, just put something you really don't like on top of it, i.e. coriander. That's it, I'm done with that now. Not eating any more of that.
I must say, I almost feel a little bit disingenuous talking about some of this stuff, because these aren't things that I'm necessarily doing at every meal or even at any meal sometimes. But they are tools that people can use, and I have done. The periods when I'm really dialed in and you think, you enjoy your meal better, you eat the right amount of food, but it just reinforces this idea of it being a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 on the list, mindfulness.
5 senses mindfulness.
5 senses mindfulness.
So my fiance was laughing her head off at me one day when
just in general,
stuck the fork in my food. I think I had was having pineapple at breakfast and it was on my plate, and I just took it up to my nose and just smashed. What on earth are you doing?
It's not a glass of red wine, myself.
But no, you can't. That's the point in this one is look at the colours, taste the food, smell the food. And I think you can, if you slow down and do it. She was laughing.
It's all slowing things down.
But but you can enjoy it more as well. And the reason, like I said, I'm too busy on to the next thing, going really fast, chowing it down or whatever. But at the times when I'm present enough to slow down, to smell the food, to taste the food, to look at the food, the experience is better and I feel better afterwards.
Yeah. What about you, Lynsey? Have you ever smelt pineapple?
Yeah, you can smell it the minute it comes out of the packet. But no, I enjoy where you're going with that, and I just have this picture, and it's hilarious of you sitting there
swishing pineapple.
Totally this is love. But
really taste the sugar.
I haven't practiced that one, but I'm definitely going to do it today.
It's good.
A challenge for the listener.
Yeah,
and the taste, and the texture of the food.
Nutella.
What's happened? Mike's just getting a ribbon in this one.
Oh,
all right, let's get this back on track. Mike, what's the next guideline or skill that we can use?
Wait. Wait 10 minutes. I think that's a great one.
I thought you meant something as in wait.
Oh, no. Wait. So, yeah, you can have seconds. Yes, you can have more. Yes, you can have dessert. Wait 10 minutes first. And if you still want 10 minutes?
Really important if you've wolfed down the meal.
Yeah.
And you're on to the next thing. Let's go.
This one's massive for me. This is probably my all-time favourite one. All right. Okay, I'm a relatively quick eater. I try slow down. I try be mindful. But sometimes I'm just hungry and I want to eat it because I want it, and I want it hot. I don't want it to cool down. So I'll always there's more. If I want it, I'm going to wait. And if I still want it in 15 minutes, then I'll have it. But it is, actually most of the time I don't end up having it.
This one feels like an easier one to practice, certainly for me. But also what you were saying there about being hungry. Hungry feels like an emergency.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. So when you're hungry, you typically eat really fast, and you also overestimate how much food is required in order to feel sated.
Yeah.
So you eat really fast and you eat a lot of food, and then again it's, damn, I've passed that point of feeling good. I meant the too much.
It's probably that primitive nature of just that scarcity mindset you're talking about. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat everything now. And before you know it, you're having a nap.
Well, I think as well, though, like, and this is known, when we eat, there's a cascade of events that happens in the body that it takes time before we get that signal to our brain that's like, you're full up. Yeah. So you can eat a lot of food in that first 10, 15 minutes.
First 5.
Before it's, before it's too late. So
yeah, it's catching up, isn't it?
The wait part it's an easier one, I think, to let the clock tick on, to let the processes in the body happen, so that we can say, actually, that's enough.
All right, we've got two more guidelines and skills. Next, we're going to chat about eat enough.
Eat enough. So this is almost like in the other way, in that you should get to 30 to 60 minutes prior to your next meal. You should be able to last that. So if again, you've had your lunch and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hunger's kicking in, you're really, really hungry, and you weren't intending eating until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you maybe didn't eat enough. Or again, maybe that's one of those for the snack smart, where you need to be proactive and say, well, my meal window is 12:30 and 2:30, then whatever. So it's and also part of it is sitting with hunger before the next meal, not thinking, oh my God, this is an emergency, I need to...
Yeah, like it's okay to be...
30 to 60 minutes, I think, is an okay period. When that
okay
lunch is coming up...
It's okay to feel a little bit hungry. You're looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly. You get excited, can't wait for lunch.
Yeah. Not just jumping straight into the cupboard when you get that urge to eat. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think... I don't know. I don't think I'm on my own with this, but my relationship with food is that when I'm in that... when I'm on point and a good place and have the momentum, it feels good to sit with the hunger. It feels good to wait the 10 minutes. It feels better. It's more rewarding to taste the food, to be a bit more zen with how you eat. And when you're not in the good place, that's when you're mindless, fast, not even enjoying the flavours and the things.
It's going from feeling in control to then being totally out of control of how you're feeling, and it's nice to feel in control.
Empowered.
Yeah.
Empowered.
It's definitely empowering. It's definitely, like, I was chatting, just before we started this recording. Like I remember, it's not only happened once, to be fair, but like, hopefully, the listeners be in this situation where, you've had your meal. I think one night we were having enchiladas, and like, oh, do you want another one? And I just took that moment. I was like, actually, I'm good. And it felt really good to be like, you know what? I feel good. I've eaten the right amount of food. There is more. I can have it tomorrow. I can have it now if I want it. But actually, I'm at the right amount. And I think it's empowering. It feels good. And it's the path for people who are trying to manage body weight or lose weight or things. I think it's the path forward.
Yeah, that kind of ties into the last little skill practice, which is post-check. So it's just checking in with yourself after your meal. Tell us about that, Mike.
Yeah, so just taking a moment to reflect and get that feedback. Like, am I too full? Am I still hungry?
Do I need a nap? Or
yeah. Where am I at? Just check in. And I think it can feel, for people who do struggle with their relationship with food, it can feel like they're always thinking about food.
Mm-hmm. It's constant.
It's constant. It's a battle and whatever. But I think this, again, is a lighter way to do it. And also, you don't need to. It's not like a diet where it's on or off. You don't need to do it. You can just pick up those tools as and when you need them. So it might be a day where, today I'm going to practice 5 senses mindfulness, or flavour, distinguishing between flavour and fullness, or I'm going to put my fork down and slow down, or things like that. Or this one, the post check, I'm just going to eat my meal and take a couple of minutes to check in and think, okay, how am I feeling now? It all sounds very zen, and I'll reiterate, I'm not the greatest at it. Certainly not 100% of the time. But even talking about it just now, I think God, I should do this
I
more.
could do better, yeah.
And that's the beauty of these skill practices, because every time it comes round, it's a little reminder, I think, where am I at with this?
Yeah. Lynsey, anything to add?
No, I think Mike summarised it really well there.
Did he?
Yeah, he
Summarised
did.
it perfectly. That's, I think we should add, like, you don't have to do all of them. You know, just pick a few if you want to. See how they feel, see how they work for you. That's the key. See if it works in your life, if it works with your... Go for it.
Yeah, I've got one little, and I've got this quote in my head, and I'm trying to remember it properly. And this can maybe distinguish when we're talking about eat just enough. Oh, and actually, we didn't talk about tracking, which maybe still worth touching on. There was a Marcus Aurelius quote, and he said, okay, I'm not going to get it perfect, but it was something like the difference between the boxer and the gladiator. The gladiator picks up and puts down the weapons that he uses, whereas the boxer always has what he needs and only needs to clench his fists, something like that. It sounds better, like go Google the actual quote, but that's the difference with the diet. That's something that's like on, off, on, off, on, off. And whereas these tools that we've shared in this one, it's just like you've got them, you can practice them whenever you want. It's just a case of hopefully not clenching the fists literally here, but you know what I mean? It's just, you don't need any special anything. It's just being present. It's just, you always have the tools with you, and it's just about using them.
Yeah, it's being a bit more engaged in what you're eating and thinking about it. You mentioned tracking. There's pros and cons to tracking, right?
Yes. So I think eating just enough, people as a first step might lean into tracking, because then they know, well, why don't I figure out exactly how much I should eat and track everything I eat, and then I'll know. And I think that can be
There's a place for it.
Yeah, a useful first step for people. You know, certainly if you've got yourself to a place where I was, where you're so disconnected with hunger and appetite and how much food is an appropriate amount of food, I think that's a good first step, because you can learn to think, oh, actually, if I'm going to eat 3,000 calories over the course of the day, like, how would I split that and spread that out over my day or whatever? The downside is, though, is you're still not learning to tune into the body. And so are you going to track forever? Or we get to these stages where people look at, they're maybe content with what they've eaten for the day, but MyFitnessPal tells them they've got 100 calories left. So
I'm one of those.
So then they have to fill it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just eat it anyway. Whereas you forgot that it was all an estimate, it was all a guess anyway. So your body's the best guide for how much, and these, hunger and satiety signals are inbuilt, and if we listen to them, they're there. So tracking is a tool. I have spent times where I've tracked for a whole year, maybe even more. I don't track anymore. I think it's useful, but still, if you're going to track, it's worth looking at some of these skills and guidelines and trying to tune into your body.
Even with tracking, you could probably do some of these skills and guidelines where, I might just track 3 days, and the rest I'll just try and settle in.
It doesn't need to be every day of the week.
Well, especially because how many people, listener, I know there'll be a few sort of guilty acknowledgements inside your own head that you're on it when you're tracking, but the minute you stop tracking for a day, it's a disaster. So it's another one into that idea of being flexible. And to go back to Marcus Aurelius, the tracking is like a tool that the gladiator would pick up. And so of course it has its use on occasion, but you're not going to carry that tool all the time.
No, brilliant. I think that's a perfect ending there. We'll wrap this up. That's our 7 skills. The prioritise protein, power down, eat colourful veg, review and renew, snack smart, move more, and eat just enough. If you've got any questions for us on any of these, please email us at podcast@akrfitness.com. Like, share, review. We're on YouTube if you're watching. Hello, give them a wave, Lynsey. Lynsey likes to look directly at the camera. And, give us a rating and a review, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.